Hi everyone, welcome to our CS executive class. We are continuing with the Negotiable Instruments Act chapter from your Economics, Business and Commercial Law subject. Okay, so there are, if you see my previous videos, I have already spoken about the three important negotiable instruments, which is promissory note, bills of exchange and check. Okay, so all the concepts relating to the all these negotiable instruments I have covered it in my previous video. Today I am going to take up all the miscellaneous concepts which are given under this act. Okay, first one, we are going to talk about negotiation back. What is the meaning of negotiation back? I will explain you all with the help of an example. Then, when the negotiation is obtained by unlawful means, that means fraud, unlawful means. Okay. Then negotiation, or you can say forged endorsement. Forged endorsement. Next is material alteration. Material alteration. After that, we are going to do presentment of a bill of exchange. Though I have already told you all that we have to always present a bill of exchange. Presentment for acceptance. Okay. Presentment for acceptance and presentment for payment. Alright. Then dishonor of the particular negotiable instrument, dishonor of negotiable instrument. Next will be the remedies available for dishonor. Remedies available for such dishonor. Then we have one small concept about now we say bill of exchange. Initially, traditionally it was known as hundis. And the last, the 10th topic is inchoate stamp instrument. Okay, stamped instrument. So these are the some topics which are just left, and I'm going to cover all of them in today's video. Okay, coming to negotiation back. Okay, the first topic for today's discussion. Alright, now in negotiation back, I will just explain you all first the illustration. Okay, say Mr. A, he was the holder of a given instrument. Say it was a check or a bill of exchange, anything. He was a holder of it. What did he do is he endorsed it in the name of C. Later on, Mr. C had endorsed it in the name of F. F again did an endorsement and he did an endorsement back in name of A. So A, who was the owner, the actual holder of the instrument, has again received that same instrument due to the further endorsement. This is known as negotiation back. Negotiation back. Because the instrument has come back to the holder of the instrument itself. So A was the holder. Later on, he passed on to C, C to F, C again passes back to A. So here, A cannot file a suit against C and F. Why? Because C and F are not liable to A. The liability is kind of, it is set off. The liability here becomes a set of liability. A had endorsed it to C. Because C was his creditor, C again endorsed it to F, F was his creditor, and now again he got back the same instrument. So there is nothing to pay, there is nothing to receive. Alright. So here A cannot file any suit against both these parties. Okay, because C and F both are not liable to A. So the rule that the holder in due course, okay, there is a rule, right? We have already read about this holder in due course. Holder in due course means what? The person, he was the original holder, Mr. A. But due to negotiation back, he is now again become a holder in due course. Okay, because he was again receiving the same instrument, so he's also become a holder in due course. Holder in due course always gets a better title. He can also sue the previous parties. So the rule here that the holder in due course can sue all the parties does not apply in negotiation back. Okay, the rule holder in due course can sue all the prior parties does not be applicable when the instrument is negotiated back. Here all the intermediary endorsers are discharged from their liability. Okay, so there is one exception to this particular rule. Okay, now let's take the same example. Say suppose there is this exception. Now Mr. E is the payee of the bill. Now what did he do is he endorsed that bill to R, and when he endorsed it he made a conditional endorsement. Okay, we saw what are the types of endorsement. There can be a conditional endorsement. He wrote the condition as san recourse, means he discharged himself from all the liabilities. He said if there is anything you cannot come back to me. San recourse means if there is a default you cannot come back to me. Okay. Then Mr. R, he endorsed it to M and M endorsed it to J. Now J further endorsed it and the instrument came back to E. So now here E is the holder in due course also. He was the actual holder of the instrument, but due to further endorsement he has again received back the same instrument. But since this was a san recourse instrument, okay, it was a conditional endorsement, means what? Here now E can recover the amount even from R or from M or from J or from all of them or any one of the party. So here E can, because he had already discharged himself from the further liability. That means he now has the right to take the money from any of these parties. Okay, so what you will need to remember in case of negotiation back is that if there is a negotiation, if the holder of the instrument, the actual owner, receives the instrument back due to the endorsement taking place, it is known as negotiation back. That is the meaning. Okay. But the rule that he is now become the holder in due course and can sue the prior parties does not become applicable in negotiation back, except if that endorsement was a conditional endorsement saying it was a san recourse endorsement. Alright. So this is about negotiation back. This is what is given even in your module. Okay. So we have completed this. I have explained you all with the same example. Okay, so it will be easy for you all to understand when you all read the notes, okay, or when you all read this module. Now, negotiation of a lost instrument, okay, or obtained by unlawful means. Okay, so say there is Mr. A had endorsed it, okay, to Mr. B. Okay, now Mr. C, he did a fraud. Okay, he forged the signatures. Okay, the instrument was lost by Mr. B and it came in the hands of Mr. C. Okay, now he forged the signatures and gave it to Mr. D. So Mr. D, being the holder in due course, okay, can claim the amount from the prior party. Otherwise, nobody can else claim the particular amount. Okay. You all will understand this with a better example of a forged endorsement. Say suppose, okay, forged endorsement. You will understand the concept of unlawful means also. Forged means unlawful, right? Forged endorsement. Now what happens in forged endorsement? Say example, Mr. X, okay, he endorses a bill of exchange, okay, and he writes pay A or order. That means he endorsed it in whose name? Mr. A. So now here, what did Mr. A do? He endorsed it to B. Means he just delivered it and he did an endorsement blank. Endorsement was in blank. In blank means what? He just did a signature. Mr. X, what did he do? He write pay A or his order, and here Mr. X has signed. But what did Mr. A do? He just gave a signature down and he did not write anybody's name. So it is an endorsement in blank. Okay, blank. He delivered it only to B. Now what happened is, D had kept it in his drawer. Okay, in his cupboard. It was a blank endorsement. Now what did C do is, C took it from there. Okay, he kind of stole that particular bill of exchange or a check or something, and he forged B's endorsement. Okay, and gave this same thing to D. Okay, now here D, okay, he does not derive any title because it is a forged endorsement. Okay, does not derive title. Why? Because the endorsement was first done in blank by A. Okay, he did not write pay to Mr. B or his order. He just signed it. Okay, here Mr. B had kept it with him, but it was stolen by Mr. C, wherein he did his forged endorsement of B and he delivered to D for the payment. Now D, being the holder in due course, he does not derive a title. Why? Because the endorsement was a blank endorsement. Okay, but he can claim from the parties. But can claim from any of the parties. He can claim money from any parties. Okay, so this is the meaning of the forged endorsement. So when we will read this, forged endorsement. In case of forged endorsement, if an instrument is endorsed in full, properly, Mr. A or his order, it cannot be negotiated except by an endorsement signed by the person to whom or to whose order the instrument is payable. For endorsee obtains title only through such endorsement. Thus, if an endorsement be negotiated by means of a forged endorsement, the endorsee acquires no title, even though he be a purchaser for a value in good faith, for the endorsement is a nullity. Basically, they are saying, simple words, I will make it more simple for you. They are saying that in case of forged endorsement, if the endorsement is a full endorsement, properly done, is a full endorsement, name of the endorsee is written. Here, endorsee acquires no title, even if he purchases the instrument, okay, in good faith for a value. Okay, so in my example it is the same thing. Okay, if you see my example, it is the same thing. It was a full endorsement. Mr. X had done a full endorsement, pay A or his order. But then when it passed on to B, okay, A made it a blank endorsement. But initially it was a full complete endorsement. Okay, so here D will not derive any title, but he can claim from any of the parties. That is what they have written. Okay, forgery. Always forgery. When you do a forgery, conveys no title. But where, okay, the instrument is a bearer instrument only, or it was endorsed only in blank, it can be negotiated by mere delivery, and the holder derives his title independent of the forged instrument and can claim the amount from any of the parties to the instrument. For example, a bill is endorsed, pay A or order, then A endorses it blank and it comes in the hands of B, who simply delivers it to C, mere delivery. C then forges it B's endorsement and transfers it to D. The D, as a holder, does not derive any title, but he can claim the amount from any of the parties. Okay, because forged instrument cannot derive any title. Anything which is taken by forgery cannot derive any title. Okay, I have already finished with acceptance for honor, okay, and acceptance of bill of exchange. Now presentment for acceptance. A bill of exchange compulsorily has to be presented for acceptance. Okay, so if I'm a seller and I'm sending my bill, okay, and I'm sending my goods also along with that bill, the buyer has to accept that bill and send it back to me. Okay, it is only bills of exchange that require presentment for acceptance, and even these are certain kinds only. Okay, bills payable on demand or on fixed date need not be presented. Bills which are payable on demand or on a fixed date, then they need not be presented. Thus, a bill payable 60 days after the due date on happening of a certain event may or may not be presented for acceptance. There is no compulsion. But the following bills will have to be presented for acceptance, otherwise the parties to the bill will not be liable. Okay, so if it is a bill of exchange which is payable on demand, okay, or on a fixed period, fixed date, then they need not be presented. It's your choice. Okay, presentment for acceptance. Now, what are those bills? But there are some bills which have to compulsorily be presented. A bill payable after the site. Here, presentment is necessary in order to fix the maturity. Maturity is not yet fixed. Maturity is going to get fixed after you see the bill. Okay. A bill in which there is an express stipulation that it has to be presented for acceptance before it is presented for payment. So, if you are under certain terms with the party that every time you make a bill, first it has to be accepted. Okay, first it has to be presented for acceptance, and then only you can present it for payment. Then the such bills you have to compulsorily go ahead and present it for acceptance. Okay. Now, Section 15 provides that the presentment for acceptance must be made to the drawee or his duly authorized agent. If the drawee is dead, the bill is to be presented to his legal representative, or if he is declared insolvent, then to the official receiver or the assigner. Okay. So, to whom the bill can be presented? To a drawee and his authorized agent. If there are many drawees, then it has to be presented to all of them, legal representative or official receiver. The drawee is in case of need. Okay. Then when the original drawee refuses to accept the bill, then yes, the drawee in case of need, if it is, then acceptance for honor. To all these people, the bill has to be presented for acceptance. However, in certain cases, presentment for acceptance is excused. 1. When drawee cannot be found even after reasonable search. When a drawee is a fictitious person or is incapable of contracting itself. Where although the presentment is irregular, acceptance has been refused on some other ground. Okay, so when presentment for acceptance, in these 3 cases, it can be, however, be excused. Similarly, when the due date is about to come, presentment for payment is also important. Okay, presentment for negotiable instrument for payment. It says all the notes, promissory notes, bills and checks must be presented for payment. Obviously, you have to go to the bank and even give the check for the payment, no? Thereof, respectively by or behalf of the holder during the usual hours of the business, and the maker or the acceptor, and if the banker is with the banking hours. Okay. So here, presentment of payment, however, can be excused in the following reasons. When the maker, the drawer, the acceptor actively does something and obstructs, okay, the person, okay, deprives the holder of the instrument and keeps it even after the maturity. where his business place is closed on the due date, then you are excused from presentment. Where no person is present to make the payment at the place which was specified, where he cannot be found even after the due search, where there is a promise to pay notwithstanding not presentment, means otherwise also you are told that expressly you had waived off that even if you do not present me for the payment, I will make the payment. Okay, where the drawer could not possibly have suffered any damage even if the negotiable instrument was not presented to him. There was no damage done to the drawer. Where the drawer is a fictitious person or is incompetent to contract, the drawer and the drawee is the same person then to whom you are going to present. Next, where the bill is dishonored by non-acceptance, if it was not accepted only in how it will be paid. Where the presentment has become impossible due to declaration of war between the two countries, so and so forth. Where though the presentment is irregular, acceptance was refused on some other grounds. Okay, so when a bill is not accepted, it is known as a dishonor by non-acceptance. Okay, where a bill is compulsorily required to be accepted and then also it is not accepted, it is known as dishonor by non-acceptance, which is given under section 91. And when a bill is dishonored by not paying it, it is known as dishonor by non-payment under section 92. So when it is said that a bill is dishonored by non-acceptance, when the drawee of the bill, okay, who had to accept it, does not accept it within the 48 hours from the time of the presentment. When presentment for acceptance is excused and the bill remains unexecuted, is giving excuses. When the drawee is incompetent to contract or he is a fictitious person, he cannot be found even after reasonable search, and where the acceptance is a qualified one. You cannot accept the bill with any kind of condition. Qualified means condition. Conditional acceptance. There cannot be any conditional acceptance. Okay. Now dishonor by non-payment. Okay, a promissory note or a bill of exchange or a check is said to be dishonored by non-payment when the maker, the acceptor or the drawee of the check makes a default in the payment upon duly being required to pay the same. Simple. Okay. Now notice of a dishonor. Whenever there is a dishonor happening on any of the bill or any of the negotiable instrument, the notice has to be given even to the prior parties. Okay, this is important. Okay, when a negotiable instrument is dishonored, either it is dishonored by non-acceptance or it is dishonored by non-payment, then the holder or some party liable thereon, okay, they must give a notice of dishonor to all the other parties, okay, from whom they seek that they are all liable to him, because of the endorsement there are many prior parties, no? So then he has to give a notice of endorsement to them. Each party receiving the notice of dishonor must, in order to render any prior party liable to himself, then give that notice of dishonor to that such prior party in a reasonable time. Okay, so if I've got a negotiable instrument and it was dishonored, okay, and I want to make my prior party liable now, I have to give a notice of dishonor to that prior party. If that prior party also had a prior party because of endorsement, even they will have to give a notice. However, certain cases notice of dishonor is unnecessary when it is dispensed with or waived specifically, that there is no need of giving any notice of dishonor. If it is dishonor, just come to me, I'll make the payment. When the drawer has countermanded the payment, when the party charged would not suffer any damage for the want of notice, when the party entitled to notice cannot be found even after due search, when the omission to give notice is caused by unavoidable circumstances due to the death of the party, dangerous illness of the holder, where the acceptor, okay, is also the drawer, okay, where the firm draws a bill on its grounds, then why do you require notice of dishonor? Where the promissory note is not a negotiable, such note cannot be endorsed. Where the party entitled to the notice promises to pay unconditionally, and no such conditions are attached to it. Okay. However, whenever there is a dishonor for a non-payment or something, a noting and protest has to be done. Okay, so it becomes the legal proof that this particular party has dishonored your negotiable instrument. So now what is this noting and protest? Okay, very simple, and it is important. They ask this for short notes. Alright, so what is a noting? Where a note, okay, promissory note or bill. Okay, here noting and protest, I am talking only about two things. One is promissory note and bill of exchange. Only if these two are dishonored. Okay, for check, if there is a dishonor of check, means bounce of check, there is another remedy. Alright, noting and protest is for promissory note and bill of exchange only. Okay, only for these two. Okay, now what does that mean? Where a note or a bill is dishonored, then the holder is entitled to, after giving a due notice of dishonor, to sue the drawer and the other endorsers. Right? He has the right to sue the other endorsers, prior parties. Now here section 99 provides a convenient method of authenticating the fact of dishonor by means of noting. Because how will the court believe me that this was dishonor? So what happens here? I will go ahead and I'll do a noting of this. Okay, noting. Where a bill or note is dishonored, the holder may so, if he so desires, cause such dishonor to be noted by a notary public on the face of the instrument, or you can attach a paper, okay, or partly on each. The noting or a minute, it is also known as a minute, must be recorded by the notary public within the reasonable time after the dishonor, must contain the fact of dishonor. Then the date of dishonor, the reason, if any, assigned for such dishonor. If the instrument has not expressly been dishonored, the reason why the holder is treating it as a dishonor, and he has to pay the notary charges for the same. After noting, a protest certificate is made. Okay, what is a protest? It is a formal notarial certificate attesting the dishonor of the bill, and based upon noting which has been effected on the dishonor of the bill. After noting has been made, a formal protest is drawn up, okay, and it relates back to the date of noting. Okay, where the acceptor has become insolvent or has suspended the payment, or his credit has been publicly impeached before the maturity of the bill, then the holder may have the bill protested for a better security. The notary public demands better security, and on its refusal makes a protest known as protest for better security. Okay, where the particular person who had to accept the bill, he has already become insolvent, okay, or suspended his payment, or his credit has been impeached, then a noting can be made for a better, protest can be made for a better security. Okay. Now, foreign bills must be protested for dishonor when such protest is required by the law in that country in which they are drawn. Foreign promissory notes need not be so protested. Where a bill is required by law to be protested, then instead of a notice of dishonor, notice of protest must be given to by the notary public. Okay, this is about noting and protest. Once noting is done, a formal certificate is drawn, that is known as a protest certificate. Okay. Now discharge of the instrument. Discharge is done by either payment is done in the due course, when the principal debtor himself becomes the holder, like no negotiation back, by an act that will discharge by simple contract, renouncing in the rights, and by cancellation. Okay. Material alteration. Basically, what is material alteration? Here, if you are making any material changes to a given instrument, it will be known as material alteration. Okay, an alteration in material in which, in any way that alters the operation of the instrument and the liabilities also of the party. Therefore, any change in an instrument which causes it to speak a different language in legal effect from what it originally spoke, okay, then the instrument is said to be materially altered. Now, what are the examples? Say you are changing the date of the instrument, material alteration, sum payable amount, the time of the payment, the place of the payment, rate of interest, addition of a new party, tearing of the instrument, all these are material alteration. Okay, Okay. Now, however, this following examples does not relate material alteration. Means you're correcting a small mistake which is there. Okay, your correction of a mistake. Okay, the common intention of both the parties, you're trying to carry out that. An alteration made before the instrument is issued only with the consent. Crossing of a check is not material alteration. Addition of words on demand, etc. is not a material alteration. Okay. Section 89 provides protection to a person who pays on an altered note, bill or check. Okay. So what protection is given to that person who apparently goes ahead and makes the payment on an altered negotiable instrument. Okay. However, in order to be able to claim the protection, the following conditions must be fulfilled. First, such alteration should not be apparent on the face. If it is apparent, then why did he make the payment? You can't see. Something like that. The payment must be made in due course. The payment must be made by a person or a banker liable to pay. Okay. Retirement of a bill under rebate, that is nothing but, say, suppose I had given, okay, the due date was 31st of March 21, okay, for the payment date. However, my debtor, he went ahead and he made the payment on 1st of Feb itself. So, retirement of a bill under rebate means instead the payment amount was 20,000, I gave him a rebate of 10%. I told him pay only 18,000. So, it is a payment done in due course. Okay, while in due course before the maturity. So, if I provide some discount to it, it is known as rebate. Alright. Then we come to hundis. They are also negotiable instruments only, but they are written in an Oriental language. Okay. Generally, they are governed by the customs. There is no law as such, but the custom of that particular locality, the way they carry on the business. Okay. The promissory notes were known as steep, and hundi, they used hundi for bills of exchange. Okay. Now, there are certain types of hundi. First is the Shahajo hundi. Shaha means what? A respectable person, responsible person in that particular area, in that particular market and bazaar. Okay. So, a Shahajo hundi means a hundi is payable to that particular respectable holder. Okay. Then we have a Jokmi hundi. Jokmi means is always drawn on or against goods shipped on the vessels. It implies a condition that money will be paid only if that goods arrive. So, it's a Jokmi hundi. Jawabi hundi means a person desirous of making a remittance writes to the payee and delivers the letter to a banker who either endorses it on to any of his correspondents near the payee's place residence or negotiates it or transfers. On the arrival, the letter is forwarded to the payee who intends and gives his receipt in the form of an answer to the letter, which is forwarded by the same channel of the drawer of the order. Therefore, this kind of hundi is used for remitting money from one place to another. Okay, hawala system. Okay, where there is a letter also given from one particular place, okay, from other country, a letter is sent along with money. Okay, then there is a person here in India, say Mr. X, he receives this letter along with that money. Okay, so it is known as a Jawabi hundi, remittance is made. Okay. Then we have a Naam Jog hundi. Naam Jog means which is a party to name, Naam. Okay, named in the bill or his order, payment has to be made to them. Darshani means the payable at sight. Moment you show, that time it is payable. They are payable on demand. Okay, then Miyadi hundi means a Muddati hundi. Okay, it is payable after a specified, Muddat means some specified time. Dhan Jog hundi, which is payable to the dhani or the owner, and Firman Jog means it is payable to the order, whoever Firman. Firman means an order. Okay. Then we have presumption of law and payment of interest in case of dishonor. Okay, there is a 6% to 18% per annum interest on negotiable instrument. Rate of interest is specified where interest has to be paid. Now, penalties in case of dishonor of check. Okay. Now, Here this act has been amended and it is given under the Act 2002. The amendment is made. Okay. Here amendments have provided the drawer with more time to send notice, made the punishment for the offence more stringent, given power to the court for condonation of delay in filing the complaint, excluded the liability of government nominated directors, made provisions for summary trials, etc. So this is all what is given in the chapter. Now what is it? Okay. Say suppose section 138. Okay, it talks about dishonor of check. It was put under the Amendment Act of 2002. Okay, when the act was amended. Okay, now section 138 says if the check is dishonored due to the reason for want of funds, okay, there is improper balance, insufficient balance, then this kind of a dishonor will be treated as a criminal offense. Okay, now here the drawer, they have put stringent punishments on this. They say he will be punished for a period of 2 years imprisonment, and or there will be a fine which will be the twice the amount of check. Okay, twice the amount of check. So this is the punishment they have provided, and they have now treated this offense as a criminal offense. However, there are conditions which they have put on the holder of that particular check. Okay, first condition is this check, okay, the payment to be made under this check was for discharging of a legal liability. Okay, legal liability. Second, this check was presented in the bank within 3 months, because after that it becomes a stale check. Third, the bank must have returned the check, okay, for want of funds, not any other reason but this one particular reason, for want of funds. Okay, once I have received that check back, okay, within 30 days of return, the payee, okay, or the drawee makes demand to the drawer that, see, your check has come back, so kindly give me another check, or a proper, put your sufficient balance and give me a new check, I will put it in the bank. Okay, so I make another demand from the drawer within 30 days of such return. Here the drawer fails to pay within 15 days of such demand. So again, once I do a demand, then I give drawer a time of 15 days. It is given in law. Okay, by the law it is given that drawer will get more 15 days time to make such payment. Okay, so I as a holder in due course, I will wait for the 15 days after making a demand again. Okay, and here holder in due course files a criminal complaint within 1 month from the expiry of 15 days given above. Okay, so these are the conditions which are necessary to be fulfilled, okay, by the person who is holding the instrument, or holding the check, okay, the holder in due course, that he has got this money or this amount, the payment was for discharging of legal liabilities. It was presented by me within 3 months to the bank, and then the bank returned the check for the need or want of funds. Within 30 days, I have demanded, and the payee, I have demanded the drawer to make the payment, and I waited, like within 30 days I have to demand. Okay, within 30 days of the return. Then I wait for 15 days. I give drawer a time of 15 days. If the drawer fails to make the payment, okay, after this second warning, then I go ahead and I file a criminal complaint within 1 month from the expiry of 15 days. Only then the court will help me out with the particular remedy in case of dishonor of check. Okay, so it is all this is the entire procedure which they have given, where the case is taken before the magistrate. Okay, now I have left with one small topic with you all, that is okay, let's move to our original index where we had started. Okay, so we are done with negotiation back, negotiation by unlawful means, forged endorsement, material alteration, presentment for acceptance, presentment for payment, dishonor of negotiable instrument, remedies, Hindis. Now, inchoate stamped instrument is the only topic which I am left with. So, I will be completing that. Okay. Now, what is an inchoate stamp instrument? Let's take an example. Okay. Inchoate stamped instrument. Inchoate means insufficient, improper. Okay. Now, promissory note, I told you it has to be stamped, properly. So, say suppose Mr. A, he stamps and signs a promissory note. Okay, he stamps it also and he signs a inchoate, incomplete. Inchoate means incomplete stamped instrument. Okay, so now Mr. A, he stamped a promissory note properly, he signed it. Okay, and gives it to B. Gives it to B. Okay, now here what does Mr. A do? He keeps the amount and name of the payee blank, incomplete. Okay, he does not put in the amount, he does not even put the name of the payee. Now, what does A do is, A basically gave this to B because he had ordered B, he orders B, say B is the person who is working with A. He orders B to buy 3 bales of cotton. Okay, this is just an example. Okay, 3 bales of cotton. He tells them that you buy only up to amount of rupees 15,000. Do not cross this amount. Okay, I am ready to pay only 15,000 for this 3 bales. So go ahead and buy it from the market, this 3 bale, and see to it that your amount is up to 15,000. If say come over to, it's okay. Now, with this order, B goes ahead, okay, and he buys cotton bales from C worth rupees 18,000. Okay, he puts this amount on that instrument, he writes this amount, he also writes the name of the payee as C. Okay, and fills this name and the amount and he gives it to C. Now, the instrument which was stamped, okay, the stamp, the amount of stamp which was put on the instrument, it is stamp of promissory note. It is capable or can cover an amount up to rupees 20,000. Okay, इतना stamp किया था, sufficiently stamped था. Okay, stamped it was sufficiently. Means it could cover an amount of rupees 20,000. It would have been about 20,000. Then it would have been said that the stamp was insufficient on that instrument. Okay. include incomplete stamped instrument because it is incomplete with regards to the amount of the payment and the pay. Alright. But the stamp was proper. Stamp was within the amount. Stamp was within 20,000. No? So 18,000 amount was there. So therefore, here, hence, since it was properly stamped, C can recover from A. Okay. He can recover from it. Even though A had told B specifically that I will pay only up to 15,000. Then also C, he is the holder in due course. He can recover the amount from A. However, now it would be, but say suppose, if instead of C, okay, B put his own name. B puts his own name as a payee, okay, and puts rupees 18,000 there, okay, then here B cannot recover from it, A, because B is only a holder and not a holder in due course. Okay, so here B cannot recover the amount from A. Also, if this particular instrument, okay, was stamped to cover an amount of rupees 20,000 and the amount which is being written in the instrument is 25,000, then again it will become an incomplete instrument. You cannot recover it. You have to properly stamp it first. So it was 22,000. Alright, so if this is the change, if this is the amount which is higher than what for the stamp is being made on, then you have to, it is a insufficient stamp. Okay, but keeping to this example, if you all have understood this example very well, then nothing like it. Okay, so here Mr. C, being a holder in due course, can recover from A, but Mr. B, if he puts his own name as a payee, he was the holder of the instrument, he cannot recover this amount from A. Okay, so with this I complete my entire chapter of negotiable instruments, okay, which we have done in parts so that it becomes easy for you all also to refer from the module and study the theory. Okay, then I had put in some exam questions. So let's go through those exam questions and see what actually they ask. Okay, in negotiable instruments, what are they actually asking? Okay, if you see, they ask about distinguish negotiability and assignability, bill of exchange and promissory note. Okay, then there is again nothing, so it's like basically for 5 to 10 marks. Again, if you see, they are asking you distinguish between check and bill of exchange. Okay. Or there is nothing in the other questions. So that is it. You know, with the past 3 years papers, if you see, this is what they basically ask, okay, from this Negotiable Instruments Act chapter. Alright. So, moreover, you have to concentrate on the distinguish part. Moreover, concentrate on promissory note, bill of exchange, and check all the concepts related to that. Okay, the definition, the parties involved, the essentials, and the distinguish. Okay, for all the 3 types of negotiable instruments. Alright, thank you.